Graham here for Trailblazer RV. We're going to take you through a new RV orientation on a 2017 Venture RV SportTrek 271 VRB. We'll start right here at the front of the trailer, where you've got your propane tanks and battery system. So to access the propane tanks, you can lift up this access panel here just to access the valves, or you can pull the whole cover off to access the tanks themselves. You've got two 20-pound propane tanks. Both of these are full right now, and an automatic switchover propane regulator. And what we recommend is opening both bottles, and if you come in here, you can see that there's a sight glass here showing clear. That shows that propane is flowing from the supply bottle. With the regulator pointing at this bottle, this is the supply bottle, and that makes this the reserve bottle. As long as both valves are open, the regulator will pull the propane from the supply bottle until it's empty, and at that point it'll automatically start to pull from the reserve bottle. When that happens, this sight glass will turn red, and at that point you can flip the propane regulator over to the other bottle, remove the first bottle to go and refill it without ever shutting down your propane system. Right behind that is your 12-volt battery. So it's a 12-volt deep cycle RV marine battery. Two leads go into the battery, a red to the positive and a black to the negative. It's a flooded wet cell battery, which means there is some maintenance required. We recommend once or twice a year popping these two caps off of the battery and checking the fluid level in the 6 cells that you'll find beneath the caps. If you see in any one of those cells that the fluid looks a little bit low, and especially if you can see metal plates sticking through the fluid, you'll want to top up that fluid with some distilled water and put a good charge on the battery. We also recommend removing the battery for winter storage. Take the battery off the RV, store it inside, somewhere where it's not going to freeze, and preferably, if you get a chance to, put a trickle charge on the battery once over the course of the off season. Follow me around this side of the trailer. Here you've got your pass-through storage compartment, and inside there is where your power cord is stored. So it's a 30 amp power cord, and many RV sites that you camp at will have 30 amp service available. If they don't, we also supply the park adapter to break that down from 30 amp to 15 amp household style power. The power cord attaches onto the RV at the back. I'll show you that as soon as we get there. There's a little access panel right here with 2 screws. You can remove these 2 screws to pull this access panel off, and that's where you'll find your water pump. If you need to access the water pump for winterizing, that's how you'll get at it. Right next to that is your fresh water system. So you can fill your fresh water holding tank from here. You can do that with a normal garden hose, or what we recommend is using one of those white non-toxic drinking water specific hoses. That way you won't get the plastic taste in your drinking water. So that just gravity fills the fresh water holding tank. You can also hook up to pressurized city water. If you're staying at a campsite that has pressurized water, you can hook your hose right up to here. Then you don't have to worry about ever running out of water, and you don't have to use the RV's water pump. If you're going to hook into pressurized water, we recommend a water pressure regulator. It's just a little brass piece about this big, goes on the end of your water hose, and maintains proper operating pressure in the water system. To drain your fresh water, you'll find the freshwater tank drain right here underneath the trailer. So just open this valve to drain the water out. We've left the valve open right now. Whenever the RV is sitting in winter storage, we recommend leaving that valve open so that you can't have any moisture sitting here in the hose where it could potentially cause damage. You also have stabilizer jacks on all four corners of the RV. With this stabilizer jack, once you've got the RV parked in place and relatively level, you can crank this down to be snug with the ground, but we don't want to actually lift the RV with these. They're just for stability. The best way to level the RV, if you're in a particularly unlevel spot, the best way to level the RV side to side is still to back it up on blocks. Lots of people just use 2x6s for that, but we do also have specific RV leveling blocks that are nice and lightweight, fit together like Legos, and store away a little easier. Here towards the back of the trailer is your sewer dumping station. So we supply a 20-foot medium heavy-duty sewer hose with the RV. It's stored right now in the rear bumper. When you go to dump your holding tanks, hook the sewer hose onto here, other end goes into the ground, and then you have two valves. You've got a larger black valve and a smaller gray valve. Always dump the larger valve first. This is your sewer. So once the contents of the black holding tank have finished draining, you can close this valve and open this valve. This is your sink and shower water, your gray water, and this will flush out the contents of that hose, so there's no sewer left in the hose when you have to remove it and stow it away. Right here is your 30 amp power connection. That's where that power cord attaches to the trailer that you saw inside. And above that, you have your outside shower. Pretty simple. Behind this door is 2 taps, hot and cold. Outside shower extends to about that high. Don't forget about this in your winterizing process. It's something that's commonly forgotten, and we replace a lot of those in the spring from freeze-up damage. Here at the back of the trailer, you have your folding cargo tray. To fold it down, just remove the 2 pins from either side. The cargo tray is rated for 250 pounds, and there's an upright here that can go in right here to tie larger units off to, bikes and that sort of thing. Don't exceed the 250 pound weight capacity because it could overload the tray, but it also changes the weight distribution dynamics of the RV quite a bit if you load more than 250 pounds onto the back here. Here around the side of the trailer, the camping side, is your outside kitchen. So to extend the kitchen, just release the pin and pull out. It can latch into place right there. At your stovetop, you've got 2 propane burners. You'll just light these manually with a barbecue lighter. But before you can do that, you'll have to hook up the propane line. And right underneath here, you can see a quick connect. The propane line right now is stored in the front storage compartment. Just hooks up to this quick connect here, and then underneath the trailer to this quick connect. Once you've got it hooked up, there's a valve that'll need to be turned to the on position before any propane can flow. Hot and cold water access here as well, and a quick connect high-rise faucet that obviously needs to be removed to slide the kitchen closed. Your fridge for your outside kitchen works on 110 volt power only, and so that won't work on propane like the inside fridge. Here you've got your hot water tank. This is a gas electric DSI hot water tank, so there's no pilot lights or anything to worry about. But there are a couple of things to know. In here you've got 2 little black reset buttons. These are ECOs, so if you ever overheat the water, or overheat the water tank, most likely by starting it up with no water in it, you'll trip these and they'll have to be reset before you can start the hot water tank again. So just come out here, press in on both of those buttons to reset. The one on the left is for electricity, the one on the right is for propane. If you are going to run the tank on electricity, there's a little black rocker switch down here in the bottom of the tank. That needs to be turned to the on position for the tank to run on electricity. This is also where you'll drain the water from the hot water tank for the winter by pulling out this plug here at the bottom. And on the end of that plug is an anode rod. It's a rod about that long that corrodes over time. And the reason it does that is to protect the inside lining of the tank. The impurities in the water corrode the anode rod rather than the inside lining of the tank. So that is a maintenance item on the RV. It needs to be periodically replaced, but it can get quite pitted and corroded looking before it actually needs to be replaced. So depending on the quality of the water, typically every 3 to 5 years you'll need to replace the anode rod. We sell them in our parts department. They're 20 bucks or so and need to be replaced every 3 to 5 years. Before you pull that plug and anode rod out, make sure you use the pressure relief valve to just bleed the pressure off of the system. The hot water tank sits at about 40 psi usually, so if you pull this out before releasing the pressure, you're going to get sprayed with water. There's a good chance it'll be hot water. That's about it with the hot water tank. Another vent here on the side of the trailer is the fridge vent. Now this can be removed to access the back of the fridge for some repair and maintenance work or just for cleaning, but mostly just a vent. The fridge needs a little air circulation back there to operate. Here at your running gear, a couple of things to go over. Your tires are inflated to 65 psi. It's stamped right on the sidewall of the tire, 65 psi cold, and we do recommend that you run the tires right at 65 psi. People chronically run their RV tires underinflated, so go ahead and run these right at 65 psi. Also, your lug nuts are torqued to 100 foot-pounds. We recommend periodic retorquing of your lug nuts, and also periodic repacking of your wheel bearings. This one has what's called easy lube axles, so this center cap can be popped out with a flathead screwdriver, and in behind there you'll find a grease zerk that you can use a grease gun to grease your inner and outer wheel bearings. Easy lube axles don't eliminate the need to repack wheel bearings, they just prolong it. So instead of repacking your wheel bearings every year, maybe you repack wheel bearings every 3 or 4 years. Here is your awning. This is a height adjustable power awning. So the awning is controlled from inside, but the height can be adjusted when the awning is in or out. So I'll just show you how to adjust the height of the awning when it's in the in position. There's some adjustment here on the side of the awning. If you just push in on this knob and raise the bar, that will lower this side of the awning when it's fully extended. We do recommend though that you have these the two arms within 2 holes of each other to extend and retract the awning. If the difference between the 2 bars is more than 2 notches, it can cause the fabric on the awning roller tube to roll up crooked. Good practice to just always have them in the same setting when you retract and extend the awning, but it can be adjusted from there. To open your step, with 2 hands, slide the whole step out, then roll and flip. Put it away, flip, roll, slide. And then this style of step does have a lock for travel as well. So locked, unlocked. That about covers it for the outside of the trailer. Follow me inside and we'll go through a few more things. Here we are inside of the SportTrek trailer and going to show you a few things right here inside the door. First of which is your slide out control. So right here is the switch to extend and retract your slide out. And if you just push and hold the out button, what you'll see is that the slide kind of sinks down as it starts to move out. And you're going to see that again when it gets all the way out. It'll just kind of sink down into place to form a flush transition between the floor and the slide. Hear that kind of ratcheting sound, that means the slide's fully extended. You can just take your finger off of the button. It doesn't harm anything though. Once you hear that ratchet, that's how you know that the slide's all the way out. Right here is a few switches for lights. You've got your exterior yard light, your inside main cabin lighting, and this backlit blue switch is for your LED awning light. Inside the roller tube of that awning, you have an LED light there. Also, to control your awning, the switch right here above the slide switch. Just like the slide out, to run it out, press and hold the out button. To run it in, press and hold the in button. When you bring that awning in, just like we spoke outside, make sure you have the two arms within 2 notches of the same height of each other. Here you've got your entertainment system. So your stereo system runs off 12-volt power. It can run right off of your battery. This is an AM, FM, CD, DVD, Bluetooth, USB, and auxiliary stereo system. So pretty much any source you can imagine can work with this system. The TV though is 110-volt power only. So you need to have the trailer plugged into services or to a generator in order to operate the TV. There's also another switch right next to this that says microwave fireplace. In order to ensure that you don't blow the breaker of the pedestal that you're plugged into, you can only run one at a time, either the microwave or the fireplace. So if you're going to, if you're using the fireplace and you want to heat something up in the microwave, just for a moment, switch it over to microwave, use the microwave, and then you can switch it back to fireplace. Here in the kitchen, we have a couple of things. 3-burner gas stovetop, and we'll go ahead and light these 3 burners. There's a piezo sparker here, which lights all 3 of the burners. And what I recommend, anytime you put a new propane tank on or you refill a propane bottle, anytime you've had your propane system disconnected, the first thing you should do once you've got the new bottle on is come in here, open up these valves, and just light all 3 burners. Once you can light all 3 burners, it means you've bled the air off of the propane system, and your fridge, furnace, and hot water tank should have no problem starting up with their automatic ignitions. The only pilot light to worry about in the RV is here in the oven. So to light the pilot on the oven, turn the pilot knob over to on, push in on that knob, and while holding the knob in, you can light the pilot right here at the pilot assembly. Once you see a flame there, continue to hold the knob in for 10 or 15 seconds while the flame sensor heats up, and then you can turn the oven up to temperature. Once you're finished using the oven, you can turn it down to pilot on and just leave the pilot burning, or you can turn it all the way off and relight the pilot next time you go to use the oven. Your fridge is an automatic gas electric fridge, and so it runs on electricity or on propane. What we recommend is just turning it to the automatic position. It will always check for electricity first. If it has electricity available, it'll run on electricity. But if you blow a breaker or your power cord gets unplugged, the fridge will sense that and it'll automatically switch over to gas. Now you can see that it's sensed that we have no outside electricity, so it's started up on gas. There's also temperature setting on this fridge, 1 being the warmest, 5 being the coldest. We usually leave it on 3 or 4, but you might find that depending on the ambient temperature and elevation above sea level that you're camping, you might need to adjust the temperature in the fridge. Now there is the ability to override the automatic on this fridge to only run on gas. And the situations that you might want to do that is if you're trying to conserve electricity, if you're plugged into a breaker that you're worried about blowing, or you might find that the fridge cools faster on gas than it does on electricity. Now, having said that, it still takes several hours to cool an RV fridge down, so we recommend starting the fridge cooling the day before you load up so that it's nice and cold when you load your food into it. Just turn that off for now. Underneath the fridge is your power converter. This is the power center for the entire trailer. So inside here, you can see your 110 volt circuits are protected by breakers, and your 12 volt circuits are protected by fuses. You've got primarily 15 amp fuses in this one with a couple of 40 amp, and it's not uncommon in an RV to blow a fuse. So we do recommend having some spare fuses along with you, just in case you need to change a fuse out at the campsite. Other thing with this power converter is it does make a little bit of a humming or a buzzing sound sometimes when it's operating under heavy load. If it's charging a battery that's very low, or if you've got all of your lights on or something like that, it's perfectly normal. It's just the converter's cooling system for when it's operating under load. Right here is your combination propane leak detector and carbon monoxide detector. So this will actually do 3 things. It'll alert you obviously to a potential propane leak. If that was the case, you would quite likely smell the propane before this alarm goes off. It could also alert you to a carbon monoxide situation. But the third thing that it does, and actually the most common, is a low voltage alarm. This is wired into the RV's 12 volt power system. So if your RV battery gets low, this will chirp just like a smoke detector in your home will when its battery is going dead. So if this starts beeping, it could be alerting you to a propane or a carbon monoxide situation, but there's a very good chance that it's simply a low voltage situation if you plug in the trailer to either the post for power or to your tow vehicle to put a charge on the battery. Right behind me is the thermostat. So this controls both the heating and cooling systems for the RV. To run the air conditioner, you need to be plugged into power. The things in the RV that you need to be plugged into power for: air conditioning, microwave, fireplace, and TV. Those are the 4 things that need to have power hookups. And power outlets, obviously, need to be plugged into power as well. But to run the furnace, if you turn the system over to heat and turn the thermostat up to the temperature that you're comfortable with, you can hear the furnace fan kick on immediately, and it's going to be a few seconds before the burner itself actually lights up. And if we listen, we should be able to hear that click as the burner lights up, just like so. I don't know if you could hear that in the video, but the burner is now operating on the furnace. Given a few minutes, we'll have warm air blowing from our vents. Once the RV comes up to temperature, or you shut off the system, same thing happens, only in reverse. The burner goes out immediately, but the fan is going to continue to run for another 30 seconds, up to a minute, just to go through its cycle before it shuts down. Here in the bathroom, there's a few things to cover. This is where you'll find your monitor panel. So you can see that your gray tank right now is completely empty, black tank is completely empty, fresh tank is completely empty, and battery is showing fair. And the reason that that monitor is reading a little bit low right now is because the furnace fan is still running. The furnace fan is actually the highest power draw that you have in the RV, so that's the thing that will use the most power from your battery. Beneath the monitor panel are some switches. You can activate your water pump from here, if you're not hooked into pressurized water and you're operating off of the RV's holding tank, that's where you'll turn on the water pump for. And you've got two switches here for your hot water tank. Remember I told you that it's a gas electric hot water tank. So to run the tank on electricity, turn this switch to the on position. Remember that there's also that black rocker switch on the outside of the tank, which will also need to be in the on position to run the tank on electricity. To run the tank on propane though, turn this switch over to activate the direct spark ignition burner. And this little DSI fault light comes on showing that the tank is not operating, but just like the furnace, in a second we should hear that burner light up and that light will go out, just like so. So now the tank is operating on propane. If that light doesn't go out, or if it goes out just briefly and comes back on, that's when you might need to go outside and reset those two black reset buttons on the outside of the hot water tank. Just as likely as that, or more likely even, you may be out of propane. Go check your propane bottles as well. I'll turn that off for now. You can see now that our furnace fan has gone out, our battery is showing good again. If the battery was currently under charge, so if you were plugged in either to the tow vehicle or to park power, it would show C for charging. Next to the monitor panel is a notable power outlet. This is your GFCI, your ground fault circuit interrupter power outlet. Just like the outlets in the bathroom in your home with a test and reset button, the only difference in an RV is this is wired in series with all the rest of your power outlets. So if you're plugged into power, but you find you're not getting any power from your power outlets, come into the bathroom, press the reset button on the GFI plug, and everything should go back to normal. Anytime you're using the RV's sewer system, you'll want to use a good, potent RV toilet chemical. When you go to put toilet chemical into the system, open up a package of toilet chemical. It comes in powder, tablet, or liquid form. Put the chemical into the bowl, then push down halfway on the foot flush to fill the bowl with water. Once you've got the bowl full of water and chemical, push the rest of the way down to dump everything into the tank. You'll need to put some water down with that toilet chemical. It needs water to activate it, and you'll want to put new toilet chemical into the system immediately following dumping your holding tanks. So every time you dump your black holding tank, come in here, put a new charge of toilet chemical into the system, and it should be good until the next time you have to dump holding tanks. Your hot water tank will be accessed from underneath here. You'll have to remove this panel to access the back of the hot water tank for, I'm sorry, not in this model. And this model has the outside kitchen. So the outside kitchen is under there. The hot water tank will be accessed from behind this panel. So remove these two screws to access the back of your hot water tank. That's where you'll find your bypass valves for bypassing it for winter. The only other thing to cover, we haven't talked about the smoke detector yet. Just like the smoke detector in your house, but this is operated by a 9-volt battery. It's not wired into the RV's power system. So make sure that you do check the battery every once in a while, and you can test the smoke detector by pressing on the test button. So we know that's a good smoke detector. It might beep another time or two. I think that pretty much covers it. Hopefully you've learned something about the 2017 SportTrek 271 VRB. If you do have any questions, you can always get a hold of us here at Trailblazer, or you can visit our website, www.trailblazerrv.com. Thanks for watching.